Okay, let's start with this.
Here in the Great Smokies, we have come together to dedicate these mountains and streams and forests, the thousands of them, to the service of the millions of American people. Round us here, there are trees that stood before our forefathers ever came to this continent. There are brooks that still run as clear as on the day that the first pioneer cupped his hand and drank from them. In this park, we shall conserve these trees, the pine, the redbud, the dogwood, the azalea and the rhododendron. We shall conserve the trout and the thrush for the happiness of the American people. And we must counter the agents of dictators within our own nation. It is good and right that in all of this we should conserve these mountain hikes for the benefit of the American people. But in this hour we have to safeguard a greater thing: the right of the people of this country to live as free men. Our vital task of conservation is to preserve the freedom that our forefathers won in this land, and the liberties that were proclaimed in our Declaration of Independence and embodied in the Constitution. The ideals of the American way of life can and will be attained by working everlastingly for the good of the whole and not for the good of any one privileged group. I hope, for example, that 100 years from now, the Great Smoky National Park will still belong in practice as well as in theory to the people of a free nation. I hope it will not belong to them in theory alone, and that in practice the ownership of this park will not be in the hands of some strange kind of government puppet. I hope the use of it will not be confined to people who come hither on government-specified days and on government-directed tours. I hope that roads, paths, and trails will still be built in the cause of the liberty of recreation and not confined to the ulterior purposes of a war machine controlled by an individual or by an oligarchy.
Now with that said, let's get into the rest.
It is our pride that in our country men are free to differ with each other and with their government and to follow their own thoughts and express them.
In 2000, Public Law 106-206 and United States Code 54, Section 100905 directed the Secretaries of the Interior and Agriculture to require permits and develop a consistent fee structure for commercial filming and some types of photography on federal land. So in case you were wondering, this law predates the Park It Forward program by over 2 decades. Before we continue, let's define commercial filming. Commercial filming means to film electronic, magnetic, digital, or other recordings of a moving image by a person, business, or other entity for a market audience with the intent of generating income. This is a very important distinction that we'll spend some time on later. In August of 2013, the Department of the Interior issued a final rule pursuant with Public Law 106-206 focused on 3 of its agencies: the Bureau of Land Management, the National Park Service, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. The fees must take into account 1. The number of days of filming, 2. The size of the film crew, 3. The amount and type of equipment, and 4. Other factors that the secretaries deem appropriate.
But to conserve our liberties will not be easy. The task will require the united efforts of us all.
Gordon Price is a music store owner and a part-time independent filmmaker. In 2018, Price and a colleague released an independent feature film about a York County stretch of road that has long been the subject of rumors of hauntings and the location of unsolved murders. Some scenes were filmed on location in Yorktown Battlefield, which, just like Great Smoky Mountains National Park, is managed by the National Park Service. In December of 2018, 2 officers of the U.S. Park Service came to Price's music store and issued a citation for failure to obtain a commercial filming permit pursuant with 36 CFR Section 5.5a. Between 2019 and 2021, Price found himself in a legal battle against the Department of the Interior and the National Park Service. The case revolved around Price's monetary gains while using federal land. The NPS ultimately dropped its case against Price, but Price sued to overturn the statute for violating his First Amendment rights. In 2021, a district court agreed and found that the statute was an unconstitutional violation of his First Amendment rights, overturned the law, and enjoined enforcement of the law and the regulations that implemented it. At this point, the National Park Service announced interim guidance. Under the new guidance, the NPS no longer distinguished among different types of filming: commercial, non-commercial, news gathering, etc. Low-impact filming activities in areas open to the public could occur without any advance notice to the NPS or the need to obtain a permit. The guidance defined low impact as outdoor filming activities in areas open to the public, consisting of groups of 5 persons or fewer, and involving equipment that will be carried at all times except for small tripods to hold cameras. Now, you might notice that content creators for YouTube and TikTok, they typically just carry a camera or a tripod, and sometimes just a phone. This was a huge win for creators, photographers, and filmmakers alike, but it was short-lived. By September 2022, the decision was placed in the hands of an appellate court and reversed. This decision replaced the former requirements for permits and fees. The basis of the ruling reads as follows: a filmmaker does not seek to communicate with others at the location in which he or she films. The filmmaker does not use the location as a forum. Having made this determination, the appellate court declined to apply a public forum analysis, and further held that filmmaking is not in itself a communicative activity. We will dig deeper on this in a minute. So once again, filmmakers and creators alike intending to film for commercial purposes in order to generate revenue are required to complete a commercial use authorization application. Keywords here are commercial and revenue. Much like any court decision, especially ones that deal with constitutional rights, there will be a period of time where interpretation and application will be determined. I know the lead up has been lengthy, but I assure you, we have barely scraped the surface to this point. For the sake of time, many details have been left out. So if you're still with us now, we are getting close to how this applies to a channel like ours. Chances are, since you clicked on this video, and especially if you're still here with us now, you enjoy Smoky Mountain content, and may also be troubled by the possibility that you will not be able to have new virtual experiences inside the park from the comfort of your home through YouTube channels. And this is especially true if you're someone that cannot make trips to the Smokies anymore. We've been aware of this legislation long before last week. As a matter of fact, we were aware when this decision was reversed last year. Literally hundreds, if not thousands, of YouTube videos have been created on federal land since the decision. Through keeping up with the case and through conversations with park officials here in the Smokies, we have decided that we will continue to create content from inside this beautiful park. Our reasoning for this is the law has 2 major points: A, impact on natural spaces and visitor experience, and B, the intent to generate income. As you can see here on the NPS website, this includes individuals or small groups that don't use much equipment but do generate income by posting footage on websites such as YouTube and TikTok. However, the primary focus of the NPS is on commercial filming that has the potential to impact park resources and visitors beyond what occurs from normal visitor use of park areas. Examples of this type of filming are productions that use substantial equipment, such as sets and lightings, productions with crews that exceed 5 people, and filming in closed areas, wilderness areas, or in locations that would create conflicts with other visitors or harm sensitive resources. As for the impact aspect of this language, our channel, as well as other channels in the area, do what any other visitor would do in the park: drive, walk, and hike around the park. The only exception would be we carry a camera while doing so. Creators like ourselves do not require park resources such as staff to follow us around or access to areas that isn't permitted to film activities that we would be doing anyway. We're just visiting the park and carrying a camera. The carrying of the camera makes for no additional impact. The second point on generating income, well, this point is moot for us. We love this park. We uprooted our lives to live as close to it as possible, and it's been a dream of ours, and especially mine since I was a child. It is by far our favorite subject in creating content for the channel. Further, we do not rely on income from YouTube in any capacity whatsoever, so this makes this decision a simple one for us. From this point forward, we will simply not monetize any content filmed on federal lands. Again, the language of the law and guidelines from the Park Service clearly state for commercial use. If your filming or photography does not generate revenue, it is not commercial use, plain and simple. After all, this is our park. This is your park. We all contribute to the upkeep of all the nation's parks and federal lands, as well as the income of National Park Service employees and the politicians from the Department of the Interior, through our tax dollars, through donations, and through our volunteer efforts. If our decision becomes contested in any way, we're prepared to cross that bridge when we get there. We have all the necessary time and resources to do so. Coming into this year, we plan to create more content in the park than ever before, and that's what we will do. But to go a little further and to conclude, let's get concrete about this court decision. First, let's look at the claim that filming on its own is not protected by the First Amendment. While there is a case to be made for this claim, the ruling does restrict a part of the First Amendment process. While it may not restrict speech itself, it instead goes upstream and dams the river that leads to the speech. It restricts, or at least limits, the process before it begins. And what part of the population, rather I should say, whose freedom does the permit and daily fees actually restrict? Will Universal Studios, Disney, or any other major production company give a second thought to a $300 permit and thousands of dollars of daily fees? Of course not. This ruling affects you and your neighbor, who goes on a vacation and films and posts on TikTok or YouTube in order for their grandparents back home to watch it that can no longer make the trip. It restricts small-town Americans who choose to create in our national parks as their primary form of income. Remember, this law was originally put in place to prohibit production crews from trampling swaths of protected land and profiting from it, and it was also put into place before mediums like YouTube and TikTok even existed. But will it actually meet those ends? Of course not. If a production company desires to film in a national park, they will pay the fees and never miss a penny of it. Again, for me and mine, it is business as usual. But there are creators, videographers, and small businesses that will be gravely affected by this decision. Further, a case could be made, and has been ruled as such in court, that their constitutional rights have been infringed upon.
And so, to the free people of America, I dedicate this park.
So that's about it for us. We really want to thank anyone that has labored through this content with us. This was not a piece that we ever intended to create. We do appreciate all of you that have commented, emailed, and messaged on Instagram asking for our take on this. One thing is for certain, we've not heard the last of this ruling. But as for us, we look forward to bringing you more content than ever from the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. Until next time.